High on the frozen slopes of Greenland, snow drifts down soft and slow, like the measured breaths of a land abandoned by time itself. Here, at the northernmost edge of the world, where glaciers crawl lazily onward as if hauling the weight of centuries in their icy grip, a quiet encounter was set into motion. No pomp of heads of state, no dazzling lights of a high-stakes summit, just a modest visit cloaked in the unassuming title of cultural exchange. At its helm stood Usha Vance, wife of JDVance, Vice President of the United States. A woman whose elegant beauty and steady calm shone through, her deep, soulful eyes reflecting the wisdom and compassion of a new wave of American political figures. Usha stood rooted in the bone-chilling cold of Greenland, her breath escaping in delicate wisps of white that danced briefly in the icy air before fading away. She hadn't come armed with brash declarations or multi-million-dollar investment contracts. What she carried was simpler, purer, a heartfelt intent to listen. Yet beneath her composed exterior, a faint unease stirred in her chest. Greenland wasn't a land you could just waltz into, not merely because of its merciless frost, but because of the raw, jagged scars etched deep into its history. Invaded, overlooked, coveted as a strategic prize by global powers, it bore wounds that ran far beneath the surface. Could her warm, earnest heart, however genuine, really thaw the thick layer of mistrust encasing this place? That question gnawed at her, quiet but persistent. The U.S. delegation, led by UshaVance, stepped onto the soil of Nuuk, Greenland's small yet fiercely proud capital, with a fragile hope of turning a fresh page in a diplomatic story that had faded over years of neglect. This wasn't a mission to barter or stake claims. Cultural exchange, they dubbed it, a symbolic gesture, a hand extended to bridge a gap. But from the very first heartbeat of their arrival, Usha felt an unseen wall rise up around them. No vibrant flags fluttered in welcome, no children's laughter rang out, no little hands waved banners along the roadside, no local officials stepped forward with hearty handshakes. Instead, a silence settled in, heavy, cold, and unyielding, as if the entire city were holding its breath, peering at this newcomer with wary eyes, wondering what she truly wanted. Usha treaded carefully along Nuuk's snow-dusted streets, her boots pressing faint tracks into the powder, only for the biting wind to sweep them away moments later. She gazed at the cluster of small wooden houses, wisps of smoke curling upward from their chimneys, painting the gray sky with fleeting warmth. What do they think of me? She wondered silently. What do they think of us? A tide of doubt swelled within her, pressing against her ribs. She knew Greenland's heart wasn't one to open easily, not out of cruelty, but out of habit, forged by years of being viewed as a means to an end. Still, she clung to a belief, or at least a fragile hope, that sincerity might pierce through that armor. She didn't want to be a conqueror storming in. She wanted to be a listener, a guest invited to sit and hear their story. Over a handful of fleeting days, her delegation knocked on door after door across Nuuk. Usha lingered a step behind, her gentle gaze tracing every flicker of expression on the locals' faces. In her mind's eye, she saw cozy conversations unfolding, smiles traded like small treasures, stories of life on this icy edge spilling out over cups of steaming tea. But the reality was a stark, bitter contrast. Each door that creaked open revealed only a strained smile, eyes that darted away, and a reply as sharp as the wind, "No, thank you." Closed doors followed, one after another, and near the city center, a quiet crowd raised a crudely scrawled banner, "Yankee, go home." Those words hit Usha like a shard of ice piercing her chest. To Americans, it might just be a tired old slogan, but here in Greenland it was the raw voice of a people terrified of being erased, of being reduced to pawns in the hands of towering nations. Usha stood frozen before that sign, the frigid gusts tugging at her hair as it danced in the air. Inside, a storm brewed, sorrow crashing against a wall of helplessness. "They're not turning me away," she whispered to herself, her voice barely a breath. "They're turning away the shadow of what I carry." Greenland wasn't rejecting Usha Vance, the woman of flesh and blood standing before them. They were rejecting the unspoken shadow looming behind her. "We need you. For your place on the map, for your buried riches, for our national security, yours and the whole damn world's." For Americans, folks accustomed to striding tall and proud across the globe, this rejection stung like a slap. They'd come with a humble wish to be welcomed, to chat, to understand. But every soft yet steely no from Nuuk's residents carved a gash into the delegation's pride. For Usha, it wasn't just a diplomatic misstep, it was a grueling trial. She stood there in the piercing cold, watching her team lower their heads in silence, and a question clawed at her. Was I wrong to think sincerity could be enough? She didn't lash out. She didn't cast blame. But deep down, a relentless ache gnawed at her soul. She thought of Greenland, tiny in population, colossal in strategic weight, ice melting away to reveal new sea lanes, rare minerals locked beneath frozen ground. That's why every friendly gesture from the US got filtered through a lens of doubt. They didn't want to be bargaining chips in a global power play. They were weary of hollow promises from big nations. Usha understood that, felt it in her bones, but the knowing didn't lighten the heaviness pressing on her heart. I came here to listen, she thought, her mind racing. But if they won't speak, what am I supposed to do? A Danish reporter's words, spoken low and mournful before the trip, echoed in her head as she stood in Nuuk's chill. If they came to Nuuk tomorrow, they'd be greeted with protests, police, barricades. That warning reverberated now, a haunting undertone. She didn't want her presence to weigh on them like a yoke. She didn't want to be seen as some invader, but the unending refusals forced her to wrestle with herself. Can I change anything at all, or am I just a snowflake falling here, destined to melt into nothing in this cold? After days of knocking to no avail, UshaVance stood still beneath Nuuk's leaden sky. The wind bit hard, but her skin barely registered it. The cold sinking into her heart was what made her tremble. She looked at her team, their faces etched with exhaustion yet holding firm, and she knew the moment had come to decide. If they're not ready, she said, her voice quiet but steady as stone, we should hear that by stepping back. No grumbling, no furrowed brows. Usha Vance, with a rare calm that seemed to anchor the chaos around her, called for the retreat. The SUVs bearing American flags turned around, rolling out of Nuuk in silence. No traffic lights blinked, no cameras flashed, no final snapshots were taken. Just the steady fall of snow, like the heartbeat of a nation clinging to its dignity. The team packed up their papers, climbed aboard with an odd, serene grace. Usha sat inside, staring through a fogged window, a soft sadness mingling with a strange peace washing over her. She hadn't been asked in, but she left like a courteous guest. No bitterness, no coercion. Plenty called it a flop. Back across the ocean, Senator Tommy Tuberville kept parroting his groundless optimism. Greenland's part of the plan. We need it. The people there support this. Everything's moving right along. But Usha knew the truth wasn't that neat. She felt the pain lodged in Greenland's core and chose not to twist the knife deeper. I didn't come to force them, she told herself, her resolve firming. I came to listen. If they're not ready to talk, I'll wait. For those who truly get diplomacy, Usha Vance's trip wasn't a failure. It was a rare flicker of grace. Stepping back isn't weakness, it's respect. Respect for Greenland's tender history, respect for their national soul, respect for the room trust needs to take root. In a world where small nations squint at a giant's handshake with suspicion, that gentle withdrawal might just be the sharpest move to plant seeds for a bond that lasts. Greenland's sending a loud and clear message. We're savvy enough to spot who's here for us and who's here for themselves. And Usha Vance, with her sensitive heart, caught every word of it. She didn't push, didn't buy them off, she chose to walk beside them. A far cry from the loud, bulldozing style of Donald Trump that JDVance often echoes. Logic lays it bare. In the cutthroat geopolitical wrestle with Russia and China, strong-arming could shove Greenland into enemy arms. But Usha's patience carved out another road, one of trust. Slow as hell, but built to last. As the last plane lifted off from Nuuk, snow kept blanketing the gray sky. No voices broke the quiet. But in Usha's chest, a spark of hope glimmered. She knew this tale wasn't over. The doors shut today weren't a full stop. They were testing who'd come knocking again with a heart laid bare. UshaVance might not have been ushered in this time, but the way she walked off, soft, silent, without a trace of rancor, left an imprint that won't fade. If she comes back someday, not with a blaring diplomatic convoy, but with a real smile and a heart ready to hear, Greenland might swing those doors wide. Not because they saw a superpower, but because they saw a human being. That sometimes is the ember that lights every enduring diplomatic dream. Listen first, act later. The northern dreams still being scratched out, and UshaVance, with her quiet wrestlings, laid the first stones for a new chapter. Not with muscle, but with understanding. So what do you think about this if you're an American citizen, or maybe you're one of the peaceful, friendly folks of Greenland? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, let us know where you're from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch more of Vance's gripping, challenging journeys and the epic stories of America.